All right, guys, welcome back to the Coach to Coach podcast. I am joined, as usual, by Joe Brooks. My name is Kevin Turner. We are both coaches in the fitness space. Today, we are going to be talking about GLPs because at present, the GLP orals are now picking up some momentum, and they are cheap. But before we get into that, let's do a little catch up as we normally do. Joe, how is everything going on your end? Training, your progress? Tell me about it.
Yeah. I feel like I've been saying the same thing over and over the last couple of weeks, just still enjoying training like it's the best that I've ever felt. All of my lifts have progressed by either I make it a point no matter how hard the set is during the workout that I'm at least progressing by a rep. And if I hit the top of the rep range, then I'm adding 5 to 10 pounds and trying to at least hit the low end of the rep range that we're working with. And so I achieved that pretty much every session. So every session I am progressing. Body weight is steadily increasing despite us being on the same meal plan for what is it, like a month now? Something like
Oh,
that.
wow, yeah.
A little bit over a month. So yeah, I just feel great. Training feels great. I enjoy seeing the body weight climb. This is the heaviest I've ever been, and it seems like I'm still just like getting leaner. It's quality size. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I love it. This is what I've always wanted out of training and doing the nutrition stuff. So how about yourself?
Gotcha. Yeah. Doing good. Doing good. I am, in a growth phase as well, and the cycle's starting to get spicy. So, I don't know if we've ever really talked numbers or anything, but I don't care. Running 750 tests at present and 300 EQ. So nothing too crazy. I've had bigger runs in the past, but I've just been slowly working the sauce up, slowly working the food up, and so now getting close to 240. I had at one point a couple weeks back kind of pushed up to 240 and got there kind of quick and didn't exactly like how things were going. I pulled back a little bit. I wasn't like sloppy by any means, but I just pulled back a little bit and then just kind of started climbing back up gradually. And so now I'm about at that point again, reaching 240 and everything's looking pretty good. Training is feeling great. And with the training, it's interesting. Like my hands are starting to get really freaking rough. Like big calluses. The calluses are like flaking off, and a lot of that is just because I'm gone back to the basics, like a lot of basic movements, like a barbell squat, barbell deadlift, barbell bench press, RDLs with the barbell, like a lot of barbell work. And it's just, it's been fun in doing so. And I got away from a lot of that stuff because, it's easy to get lost in the weeds. Like you look for like all the optimal stuff and, line this up and I just, at the root of it, like I wanted to just do hard stuff. I wanted to do stuff that was hard and felt hard and just pour myself into it, because sometimes like I would go through like a training session. It's like, man, that didn't really give me what I wanted. Sometimes you do just want to get in the gym and just like move some weight, right? So I'm trying to walk that line of like just being a little bit more aggressive in the gym and just moving some weight, but still understanding like, hey, I don't want to beat my body up, so I'm going to listen to my body and pull back when I need to. But it's been very fun scaling these barbell movements up because I started from the basement on a lot of these, like very light barbell bench press because I hadn't been doing them. Very light barbell squat. I think I started squatting with just, I don't know, it was like 135 pounds, something stupid, and just slowly week over week, just building it up. And now it's getting to the point where I haven't had this sort of feeling in a while where like I'm feeling thick, like my body's feeling thick. I feel like when I grab the bar, I can feel the strength in my hands and I can just feel some of that like almost explosiveness and aggression coming back in the gym. And it feels good. It's been fun for sure. So just pushing that along, I want to keep having my body weight move up. And, I'm almost at the point where I'm just like, I just want to kind of get aggressive, like really aggressive with the food and not care if I get too fat. Like I'm not gonna let myself get crazy fat, right? But I almost just want to say like just push it, because this realistically this might be one of my last growth phases, because I'm just getting to the point in life where priorities are changing, right? So I just want to kind of make this one count and pack on as much muscle as I can and get into one more competitive season and see what I can come up with and just not leave any stone unturned. And that might mean like, hey, I get a little bit fluffy, but I can peel it off. It's not a problem.
Yeah, yeah, just send it.
Yeah, fuck it, you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
and not
that's
not getting, not getting sloppy or anything like that, but getting uncomfortable, like getting fluffier than I would really like myself to be. And I think that historically, that has always been. I remember the first bulk I ever did, and I went from like 180, like very lean, maybe like 176, very very lean, to like 225, like fucking just jelly rolls, bro. But then when I dieted back down after that, I was looking pretty good at about 200 pounds. So I was like, okay, I put on some muscle. When I was working with Justin Harris, he was pushing the food very hard, and I got pretty fluffy, but I got very fucking strong, and training was just like through the roof. And that was another instance where it was like I put on muscle. I don't have a poundage on that one, but I put on substantial amounts of muscle. So I think that there's value in keeping yourself leaner through the process, right? Because ultimately, like if you're just wildly insulin insensitive, you're just not partitioning nutrients effectively. But I think that there are some people that are just gonna get a little bit more out of it if they allow a reasonable amount of body fat to come on during the process, right? Because it's kind of like, hey, I can either keep myself really tight, and these are just arbitrary numbers. I can keep myself really tight and not push a big caloric surplus and gain 2 pounds of muscle. Just arbitrary numbers, right? So you gain 2 pounds of muscle and you stayed really tight in the process, okay? Or I could just push the calories in likely in excess, but making sure that I'm getting the most muscle gain that I could possibly get. And maybe I gain, 6 pounds of muscle, but I end up a little bit fluffy, right? That's kind of what I'm leaning into right now, or having the idea about. So
yeah, yeah. That was something you and I talked about possibly doing for me, just because I had trouble putting on any meaningful size, and we were just talking about like I might just have to get fat. So
yeah, and I want to keep you away from dieting. Like you're in a really good groove right now. So unless you end up getting sloppy, we're just gonna keep riding it. You know what I mean? And at most, we have like a little bit of a cleanup phase, but then just right back into fucking growing. I don't want to do any sort of hard dieting for the foreseeable future. Just
yeah,
spend a lot of time eating food, being under productive training and growing.
yeah. And just to before we get into anything else, just to keep it fair, since you talked about numbers, this is my second week at 400 test, and we've added a gram, or is it a gram or a milligram of Arimidex? I can't remember off the top of my head.
You might be fucking dead
At a
if you
gram,
put
at
in
a
a
gram,
gram
at a
of.
gram,
I
right?
don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
happens
a
if you put in a
milligram.
milligram, a gram of Rimidex, but I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
Is nothing
a
good.
milligram. Off the
But
top of
yeah,
my head,
a
yeah, a
milligram.
milligram of Arimidex, and yeah, I felt
Yeah.
it. Some of the lifts that they were feeling heavy at the previous dose, and during the previous training sessions, just felt strong, like was able to keep going, keep pushing it. So yeah, just so we're even on that aspect.
Yeah. We started you lower, right, and just worked you up. We just gradually have been working you up, and cycle, like the approach that I used to take, like back in the day, was I just, if I was going to do a cycle and I had planned it out, I would just jump straight to that number. And I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but I think that especially people for people that are trying to mitigate side effects, right? It can be better to just say, hey, I'm going to put a little bit in and then inch it up, right? And you can kind of almost even have this on a schedule right? You can go about it two ways. You can just have it on a schedule and say, hey, every 2 weeks, I'm going to bump up, I don't know, 100 milligrams or something like that. Or you could be a little bit more conservative and say, hey, I'm going to just bump it up when I feel like I need to, right? Where either training performance is kind of hitting a plateau or body composition is starting to get a little bit soft. You can bump the androgen load up, and that's going to help all of that, obviously, but that's just kind of the approach that we've taken with you, is just kind of starting lower and working up after a couple weeks, and we just keep you climbing. And ultimately, I want to keep you in a spot where it's that your androgen load is very well tolerated, something like 400 to 600 milligrams, and we can just ride that for like a fucking year. Like we can just stay there instead of jumping straight to, a higher dose cycle. And then, you can only redline for so long. So at some point, if you're just jump right to that high dose, you're going to need to pull things down. You're going to start seeing kind of things start to shift. So I would rather say, hey, right now for exposure, start low, work up to a decent androgen load, a load that we can see that you are tolerating well, blood work doesn't look like shit, and we just ride that out for like a fucking year and just stay there and make really good gains. And that's kind of what I've done with a couple other clients, just staying in that like 400 to 600 milligram range for like a year. And it's just been very, very, very productive. And of course, during this time, we're checking blood work. I think that if you want to do this right, like, and stay on top of your shit, and I think that you got to pay to play. You need to stay on top of your shit. I don't think you need to be doing blood work every month or anything like that, but every like maybe 8 to 12 weeks, you should be getting some blood work done, right? And just see like what's going on. Is everything good? Everything's good. Okay, we keep going, right? Because you don't want to let things go for so long, and then it's easier to get ahead of a problem than it is once the problem has been there and has kind of latched on and been doing its thing. Yeah, at present though, everything is really like you're making phenomenal progress. So we just keep letting it do what it does.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go ahead and we'll get into the main topic today. I had a client, Fong, throw me this topic idea, and it's that GLP-1 orals are now cheap as fuck, less than the cost of nutrition coaching. Why people should not skip the nutrition coaching piece. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. They're everywhere now. Like they're literally everywhere. I'm seeing all different types of forms. I'm seeing patches. I'm seeing orals, and of
Patches.
course there's injection. Yeah, for a little bit it was on like TikTok Shop patches. But yeah, I think if you're gonna dip your toes into these things, like they need to be added on top of what you're already doing well. If you're just jumping in and you don't know how to track calories, you don't know how to read nutrition labels, you don't really have a base knowledge of really anything nutrition based, you're going to kind of be putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound. And eventually, if progress stalls or if they're not paying attention to this stuff and their weight loss stalls, they're not going to know what to do. They're not going to know what to look at. And I think the only option for them at that point is to increase the dose. And then eventually, like you just said with the PED stuff, like you can only redline for so long before issues start to creep in.
Yeah. I think that, first of all, I think that these GLP peptides, I think that they're great. I think that they are wonderful, to be honest with you. But I think that people can really go wrong with them if they, because there's going to be maybe two types of people that go on these things. Okay. There's going to be the person that says, hey, everybody's losing weight on these things. I'm going to plug this in. And they plug it in and they just have no understanding of they don't even really know what the drug does. They don't understand the impact of calorie intake and diet quality. They just take this thing and they lose weight. And they really don't change their lifestyle other than eating less of the food that they had already been eating, right? So they're not trying to increase the quality of their diet. They're not trying to track calories. All they know is they take this thing, they're less hungry, and they eat less of the food that they have been eating, which is probably a poor diet, right? That person is going to go down a road of basically whenever a stick point happens, that the only course of action, right, if they stop losing weight, is to increase the dose. That's it.
Yep.
Because you're not putting any of the other pieces of the puzzle in play. You're not using any of the other tools. So the only thing that you can do is increase the dose. And I think that the people that are on that path, that is where you find yourself on a high dose of these GLP peptides. And I think that is where a lot of the issues can come from them, because they're not fully innocuous. Like a lot of things at a certain dose, it can be health promoting, right? And very beneficial. And that a certain dose above that, it can be not good and harmful to you. Water, for instance, right? You drink enough water, you stay hydrated, right? And that has so many positive impacts. You drink too much water, you fucking thin your blood out too much and you die, right? So that's true for everything. And I think that a lot of the instances where we hear these horror stories about gut paralysis and pancreatitis, it's the people that really haven't put any effort into changing their lifestyle. So maybe they're still drinking, they're still having really high fat food. And those two things, while you're on a GLP, that's a recipe for pancreatitis, right? So those people, and then also looking even further down the road, what are you going to do when it's time to come off? Or do you just stay on this forever? And again, wonderful peptide, but I think that just kind of common sense and common logic would be that you probably don't want to stay on anything forever. It would probably be good to come off for periods of time and use it as a tool when you need to, rather than just having it as a rule 24/7. So if you don't develop or the skill set and the understanding and the knowledge about, your nutrition and like working out, like base level shit, you're gonna find yourself in not a great spot. And then you have the other people that maybe they don't have their shit together, right? So they start this GLP and maybe they don't have their shit together, but it's kind of the GLP, the weight loss, it's kind of the catalyst that gets them unstuck. They see the weight coming off and they're saying, okay, well, man, this is rolling. I can finally feel like I've got some momentum going. And maybe they start putting more effort into eating better. And then they start maybe tracking their food or having some sort of understanding of like how many calories they're eating. And during the process, they start developing systems that they put in place, and they gaining knowledge and experience that's ultimately going to help them to keep the gains that they make, or the fat loss gains they make, in place when they start to come off of this stuff. So two very different people. And I think that with the people that don't really put any effort into the food, right? Not only can they find themselves at a place where the dose is high and they're kind of stuck on this stuff, but like there's a particular look with those people that are eating too little, don't have enough micronutrients in the diet. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like deflated.
Man, it's like a walking corpse.
Yeah,
What do they call it? Ozempic face?
yeah, yeah. I think that's literally what it's called.
Yeah, it's like bodybuilding death face, you know?
Yeah,
It looks
like
like that, but
resembles like drug usage, like heavy, whatever other drugs you want to say, like give you that look. It's like that.
yeah, there's a very particular look that comes with the people that lose weight really rapidly on a very, a subpar diet. And it looks sickly. Like that's just what it looks like to me. I think people call it Ozempic face, but it just looks like drawn in and the skin's sitting weird, and like it just doesn't it's not a great look, you know?
Yeah,
And I think that too, like, if you keep your protein intake in a good spot and you're lifting weights with some frequency, like maybe not even going crazy, but like you're just an average gym person, right? And you're lifting weights, eating adequate protein, you're not going to lose muscle on this stuff. You're not. But if you have a lot of weight loss like coming off of you, you're not eating protein, not enough protein, and you're not lifting weights, some of that weight's going to be muscle that comes off of you. So you just end up being like lighter and less fat, but also less muscle. And I don't think that's really what anybody wants.
yeah. And I want to say, because I know a couple people who have gone through like doctors and through like their insurance for like what we're talking about, Zepbound, Ozempic. um, and not just buying the stuff from like a gray market site. And some of the I was kind of surprised at how some places are actually trying to make this as comprehensive as possible. Like they do give them information on how to be better with your diet, and like they teach them about carbs, they teach them about protein. The people that
That's
I
great.
know, they went through, they saw like a goal setting coach, and they saw physical therapists and fitness coaches and stuff like that. Until then, I was under the assumption that it was just doctors kind of handing this stuff out like candy. But it's at least good to know that there are actual other things being put in place that shows that they care about the person taking it, and it's not just here, take this, and we're just going to keep increasing the dose. Like there are some more reliable and more healthy ways to go about this through doctors and not just through fitness coaches
Well, I
or
think
fitness
that
coaches
the
like
pep
us. I mean, at least like, not
right.
working through a clinic or anything.
I think that there are some good doctors and practitioners, and like you can get it from like clinics and stuff. So there's all sorts of places. It's very accessible, and that's something that I want to touch on. And something that Fong brought up is that there is a readily accessible gray market area, and you can just plug this stuff into Google, and you'll be able to find um, what you're looking for pretty easily. One of the issues with that is, I've been in the game for a while. And at this point in time, my entire paradigm is like, I'm not putting anything in my body that doesn't have, up to date testing on it that shows me what it is. And also, I might send my own stuff out for testing to make sure that it is what it is. But the average person is not gonna do that. You know what I mean? So, and you don't know where this stuff comes. Well, I know where it comes from. It all pretty much comes from China. And so you just don't, it can be very tricky where you don't know exactly what you're putting in your body. And if you spend any time on like TikTok or Instagram, and you are scrolling fitness content, right? At some point in time, you're going to get like somebody that sends you a DM or like an ad that pops up that says, wholesale peptides or cheap peptides. And you could, boom, right there, buy it, and you don't know what this stuff is. So I would definitely, anybody that is interested in going down this route, you either need to do some research and make sure that the source that you're getting it from is a reputable source. I'm affiliated with Modern Aminos, Coach Redquest there. So Modern Aminos is good to go. And they offer it. I think it's not called, they've got, I think they just have retatrutide at this point, which is actually, side note, now everybody's calling it retatrutide. I guess that's the actual pronunciation of it. It's not retatrutide, it's retatrutide.
Wait, that's the actual. I thought you were like saying that's how just people that didn't know how to pronounce it were pronouncing
No, that's how it's
it.
pronounced, is retatrutide,
Okay,
apparently.
interesting. I'm probably not going to
But
change.
yeah, I'm just gonna say retatrutide. Like fuck,
Yeah.
that's what I've been saying. But yeah, if you're gonna source it from a gray market, like really do some fucking research and make sure that you're getting it from a quality source. Or if you're gonna go down the legitimate route, right, and get it from prescribed by a doctor or a clinic or whatever. Yeah, try to find somewhere that's not just gonna arbitrarily increase your dose, because there are good places like you mentioned, right, that are going to have a more comprehensive approach where they're going to be looking at your nutrition, right? They're going to be giving you some information, and ultimately, regardless of what they give you, it's kind of up to you. Like it's all out there, dude. We got Google, we got YouTube, all the information is right there out
Right.
in front of you. And ultimately, like there's a whole market full of coaches that can help you through this process too. But I would definitely try to stay away from anywhere that is just going to put you on an arbitrary titration schedule. Why would you increase the dose if you're still seeing progress? And I would say, go so far as to say, if you hop on a GLP and you do hit a point where you have stalled out and you're no longer losing weight, take an honest fucking review of what you're doing. If you have no idea about how many calories you're eating, if you're not doing regular cardio, if you're not weight training, start doing those things before you increase the dose. And I know it's not as easy as just dialing the dose in and taking more, but that will get you much farther in the long run and set you up much better than just jumping the dose up. Because if at every turn where you hit a stall point, you just jump the dose up, you're going to find yourself maxed out and nowhere to go. And on that note, just talking about like, why, if the GLPs are so cheap and they work, why not just, not even worry about any of the nutrition stuff, or why even hire a nutrition coach or anything like that? And the fact of the matter is I have several clients that have come to me on high doses of GLPs and not losing weight, right? So what do? You're at the max dose. What do? So although these things are very, very impactful, at the end of the day, they are not going to override calories in versus calories out. It does not work like that. You can overeat these things. And so there is still a need for nutrition coaching, right? I don't think that this is going to be a scenario where like, it makes nutrition coaching obsolete, because again, like I've had people come to me that are on GLPs and not making progress. And, my first thing is to say, hey, well, number one, obviously I'm a nutrition coach, so I have systems in place and I can get you to lose weight without the GLP. So let's go ahead and pull this shit down, right? Keep enough in so that we still have appetite suppression, but also pull this down to almost sort of serve as a reset so you have somewhere else to go, right? So we kind of pull this down and then we start looking at the other areas that you're not doing well, right? And that's just the calorie intake and the consistency with the diet and training. We get that up to snuff. And then if we hit a stick point, since we pulled the GLP down, at some point we can go somewhere with it. And that also gives you some time at a lower dose. Again, just kind of circling back to, I don't think it's a good idea to stay on these things 24/7, 365, especially at high doses,
Yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. And just with how, like, and this is in a more broad sense, but just with how popular, like, just peptides in general are becoming, I'm getting questions from people that are like, should I take this peptide to help with XYZ? And it's a perfectly solvable issue with the other things that we're talking about: recovery, training, nutrition, whatever it is. And it's like, because they've become so popular and so readily available, like, that's where people's minds are going to immediately as the fix all. And there are always, I could sit there and tell them like all of these different things they could be improving on. And like, it's becoming the quick fix to people's
it's
problems now.
sexy right now.
Yeah.
And it's sexy right now, and a lot of it too is like, so check it out. What do we call people that do social media? Influencers, right? Influence.
Right.
Right. And so if your kind of social media experience, and I guess influencers aren't just, let me go back to social media. We'll keep it with social media. But like, if a lot of these people, they're getting kickbacks. Okay. So a lot of people that are pumping the peptides, that are talking about this stuff, they have affiliate codes, right? So of course they're going to sell it to you. I take this thing for this. I take this thing for this. And then you find yourself, it's like, yep, I take this for this. I got this for this. And you've got a whole arsenal full of peptides that you probably don't really fucking need.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just, everybody's doing it. It's all over the place. It's the sexy thing right now. And there's so many of them. There are so many that are impactful and can be very, very useful. But it's like, it's the same thing with supplements. It's like, where do you draw the line at? You know what I mean? Like, where do you draw the line on this stuff, and before it just gets absolutely ridiculous? Like, you need to kind of look at like, can I be doing this through a different route, right? That doesn't require a peptide or a supplement. And then if the answer to that is, I've tried that and it's not getting me where I want to go, then it's like, okay, let's slot this in. But the situation is at present, like, it's just so out there and getting so popular, and everybody wants to be a part of something, and they see their buddies and they see the people on social media, and they're just like, yeah, peptides, right? Like, you take this for this, right? But it's getting very, very prevalent for sure.
Yeah. I've had to unfollow a couple people I followed for a while just because their whole brand has turned into selling peptides. Like it's
It
been
can be,
nonstop. It's
yeah,
been nonstop content just about peptides, and clearly they must have recently signed with a company because affiliate codes, all that stuff, like you just mentioned.
yeah. They're getting rewarded from it not only monetarily, but also in views because it is a popular trending topic. If you talk about
Yeah.
peptides, you're probably gonna get some traction. You're gonna get some eyes on you, know. So it makes sense. But yeah, do you got anything else that you want to touch on with the GLPs?
Nah, kind of nailed it.
Okay. And we had another topic that you had brought up. What was that? It was something around recovery.
Yeah, just thoughts on like extra recovery tools, saunas, red light therapy, massage guns, ice baths, that type of thing. I mean, my answer to this is kind of similar to what we were just saying about peptides. It's like sleep, nutrition, training, or
It's
like
not
movement.
sexy, bro.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not
kind
sexy,
of
bro. We need it. We need a thing. We need a thing for
yeah,
recovery.
right. All that stuff that we just mentioned is going to do 90% of the work. They're great in addition to, but it's not going to be where a majority of your recovery comes from. So yeah, I mean, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, and that on the topic of peptides being really popular right now, that was its own little thing that gained rapid popularity not too long ago, where people were talking about the cold plunges. Dude, stick around long enough and you're going to see like all this shit comes and goes. That's the next hot thing. And, now this person's got a cold plunge and yep, they got a code for it, of course. And, like it's all of this shit comes in waves. And it makes you think like this is the next best thing. This is the thing that's gonna fucking do it for me, right? Is recovery, and I need a fucking cold plunge, or I need a red light sauna, like I need or infrared sauna, right? I need this next massage gun that hits ultrasonic waves, and
Yeah.
it's not that. That's just a construct of like how things develop and these trends that pop up. On recovery specifically, your best recovery tools, the most valuable recovery tools that you have to you are just two things. It's sleep and managing your output. That's it. How much sleep you get, right? That's basically the side of recharging your battery, and then how much you drain your battery. That's
Right.
it. If those two things aren't in balance, you're not going to be recovered, right? So if you're at a fixed amount of sleep, and that amount of sleep is not sufficient for how much you're draining your battery, your only option is to drain your battery less. And what I'm talking about here is adjusting your training, just adjusting your output, right? That might be a volume situation, that might be an intensity situation. I don't know. But those are your two main levers is for recovery. When you hear the word recovery, what is that actually to you?
To me, the first thing that I think of is just feeling fresh and not sore by the next time I hit the muscle group or, training in general.
I got you.
And also,
Okay.
well, I can also say like feeling energized too, like not like I just got hit by a train and, feeling stiff or anything like that. So,
Yeah, I guess I would say the same, and I guess it could mean different things for different people, but as a whole, it's just feeling fresh, feeling like you are ready to work, right? But I think a lot of that, yeah, it is just sleep and managing your output. But that's not to say that some of these recovery tools aren't, they're icing on the cake, but they're not the cake. You can't fucking put icing on a cake you don't have. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So what sort of recovery tools have you messed with and dabbled with and found useful?
That's a good question. I haven't done too much sauna. I haven't done ice baths, um, foam rollers, maybe a massage gun, but I find just they're good for state relief, like feeling better in the moment. I know it's not going to be the difference between me feeling fresh or me feeling not fresh in a training session. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm hitting legs, maybe I feel a little tight. I'll stretch a little bit longer, which isn't even really that beneficial, I don't think, like stretching before hitting legs. But to open up the body just to feel a little bit less tight, I'll use a foam roller. I've used, like I said, use massage guns just to feel better in the moment. That's basically about the extent.
I think that foam rolling, self myofascial release, massages, I think that those can be pretty impactful. And I don't think it's not gonna be the difference between, you being recovered and not. But when I'm consistently foam rolling, my muscle has a different feel. And like we've all like probably most of us have gone from a period of not consistently foam rolling and then consistently foam rolling, right? And what you find is that when you're not consistently foam rolling and you get on that muscle, it feels fucking hard, right? It feels hard and it doesn't feel great. That pressure is kind of, it hurts, right? And then after you consistently do that, the muscle feels a little bit softer off the jump, a little bit more pliable off the jump. And I think that's a good thing, because we really want our muscles and the fascia that surrounds those muscles to be soft like a filet mignon, like soft and supple. It can stretch, it can return to shape, it has elasticity. And when the muscle is like fucking beef jerky, that's not a good thing. Foam rolling can kind of get in there and really allow the fascia to slide over the muscle a little bit better and just kind of break up some of that stuff. And with that too, what I've found is that when I'm consistently foam rolling, I get better pumps, because it's almost like if the fascia is really bound up and it's tight and it's rigid, the muscle that sits inside of that fascia can only inflate and swell up so much as the fascia allows it to, right? But if that fascia is supple and pliable and can slide and can move freely, for me, it feels like I get more expansion. I can get better blood flow. I can get a better pump. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I was never able to explain it to myself in the way that you just did, but yeah, like it just feels like it's able to move more easily. Yeah, like the pumps are always better. It just feels like longer, I guess. Able to
Yeah,
stretch,
sure.
able to like stretch more, pump more blood into it, like get it moving. 100%.
And I don't think like with foam rolling, I don't think that's something that, because like, look, with all this stuff, like if you really go down the rabbit hole, it's like, okay, I foam roll this, I foam roll that. And before you know it, it's like fucking, you're spending 20 minutes. You know what I mean? It's 20 minutes doing this. And now your training session has that extra 20 minutes on it. Right. So I kind of look at it as almost just like an as needed thing. Like when I start to notice, I feel like a little bit bound up, I'll start doing it a little bit more regularly. And I'm just doing a little bit. Like I think that with this sort of thing, like small frequent doses are going to be pretty impactful, probably more so than doing one like huge bit. And I think even just like mobility in general, right? Mobility, these kind of recovery practices, if you can do like small little doses that really don't feel like a whole lot of work, that shit adds up. You know what I mean? The same way that you were talking about in the beginning of the podcast, like you're coming into these training sessions and you're like, hey, if I can plus one rep, it doesn't seem like much. It's not a big goal, right? But if I can plus one rep each time I come into the gym, I know that over time is going to add up to something that is significant, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You're putting yourself in those positions more often than if you just weren't doing it at all. So eventually it's
Yeah.
going to compound.
And I know, cold plunges, those were really popular at some point in time. And my understanding of it is this, that cold plunges basically have more application for pure athletics than for hypertrophy. Um, so if you are an athlete and you need a fast turnaround, like you trained really hard, you had a game or whatever, and then you've got another game in, 24 or 48 hours or whatever, and your body's feeling wrecked, that is where having a cold plunge can be impactful to get you back to a good baseline a little bit quicker. Strictly for hypertrophy, for building muscle, my understanding is that the cold plunge, especially when it's done around training, and I want to say like within 6 hours of training, don't quote me, but within some proximity to the training window, it can have a negative impact on the hypertrophy response. Have you heard anything like that?
I've seen the same thing. It basically slows the inflammation, like
Gotcha.
That's
Gotcha.
what I've seen. And in terms of like recovery, like it kind of will numb the soreness, giving you the perception of like being recovered,
Mm,
but then eventually it just comes right back.
got you. Got you. Recovery tactics aside, I actually do enjoy cold exposure simply because it's hard.
Right.
Simply because it's hard and I feel good after it. And I'm sure that there's some sort of dopamine response or something that I'm some sort of mental hormone that I'm getting on the back end of that. But I do like cold exposure because I feel good afterwards. So, I have had periods where I do contrast therapy, where I'll do sauna, which I absolutely love. I think that the sauna is a wonderful thing, but I'll do, some minutes in the sauna and then I'll go into a cold shower and then just flip flop back and forth and back and forth. And that's something that I really, really, really enjoy doing. The sauna is one that I actually want to get a sauna for the home gym because when I'm consistently doing sauna, I think that there's something to be said for just sweating, like having a lot of sweat and fluid exchange happening. And that's probably great for your lymphatic system. But, you're also getting your heart rate up and stretching in the sauna, right? Going through some mobility. And I'm just, I'm exploring my body. Like I'm just kind of moving around, trying to find areas that feel tight and restricted and just pushing into it and coming out of it, pushing into it and coming out of it. And I find that when I'm actually really warm in a sauna, that I can make more ground on it than if I'm cold and not.
I gotcha.
But
Yeah,
you
I
haven't,
haven't. I've never sat in a sauna before, so I mean, I can
you've
read about
never
it and
sat in a
stuff.
fucking sauna?
No, not once.
What?
I just found out last week that Iron Lab has a
That's what I was
sauna
just
there.
going to say.
So yeah,
That's something that if you have access to a sauna, so look, we're kind of getting off topic here, and I think that's fine. But sauna, right? I like it. Sauna is great. You can actually, like, one of the most impactful things to getting warmed up for a training session is number one, specificity. Okay. So the best way to warm up for doing squats is a fucking squat. Practice the thing, warm up doing the thing that you're going to be doing, right? So yeah, you can really go down the rabbit hole. I got to work on my fucking ankle mobility and I got to do, these terminal knee extensions to fire the quad. And you can go down it that way and
right.
spend however long it takes you to do this complicated mobility warm up protocol. Or you can just simply spend some time warming up by doing the movement that you're going to be doing. And then if you are in your warm up sets, right, and you feel some things are off, then attack those specific things, right? If your knee is bugging you, okay, now go do some terminal knee extensions, maybe foam roll your knee, right? So that is one of the biggest things for warming up efficiently. But the other thing is simply getting your heart rate up and getting blood moving and creating warmth. That is where a sauna can really slot in. 5 minutes, right? Maybe 5, 10 minutes before you train. Get your body nice and warm, right? Maybe do some just light dynamic stretching in there. If you're squatting, maybe some body weight squats. That is something that I really, really thoroughly enjoy doing and did for a long time when I had access to a sauna. So maybe keep that in mind when the DeKalb location actually opens up the sauna, because it's noticeable. It's very impactful, in my opinion. It's something I absolutely love to do.
Yeah, I'll get in there. Yeah, I just want to touch on the creating warmth too. That's why I train in like three different layers in a hoodie. Like I was trying to like why do I like refuse to take my sweatshirt off? And it literally is the warmth. I feel better when I'm like keeping a sweat. I'm warm. Everything just feels good. The pumps feel better. But yeah, that's why. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of summer. I'll keep a sweatshirt on.
That's not placebo. That's not. I mean, think about this, right? When you are cold, what does the blood in your body do? It draws away from your extremities and it stays in your trunk, right? Not obviously all your fucking blood, but
Right, right.
generally, like when you are cold, right? Your blood is going to protect your organs, essentially, right? So it's the warmth is going to stay consolidated into like your torso. So there's absolutely validity in saying like, hey, I'm going to keep this pump cover on, right? I'm going to have these sweatpants on and get the blood rolling and create this warmth. And with that warmth comes lubrication, and everything just feels a little bit more fluid. And then maybe once you get that nice little small layer of sweat rolling and you got your body temperature up, then maybe, okay, pull off a layer or something like that so that you're not just completely soaking through. But I think that that is actually something that is probably like a underrated topic. Is just the pump cover is kind of a funny thing, but I think there's real legitimacy to that, because it's so much easier to get a pump when you have that pump cover on than if you are in a cold environment. 110%.
Yeah, it's not even close.
Not even close. All right, you got anything else you want to touch on?
No, that's it for the topics. I believe we're at like 100 and something subs.
Yeah, so just crossed over 100 subs. I think it's like 106 right now. So that's this whole thing. That's this fitness thing. That's life. It's like you start and you just the goal isn't even anywhere in sight, but you just lay these small investments day by day, and it's all delayed gratification, and eventually you'll hit a waypoint where you're like, oh, things are happening, right? And then over time it accumulates, and you can look back and say, okay, yeah, we've come a ways, So just my word of encouragement to everybody: just start. Don't get consumed by the size of the goal at hand. Just start, put one foot in front of the other, and just start fucking walking, because eventually, if you just keep taking steps, you're going to end up somewhere. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. And if you haven't already, make sure you sub to the channel. And if you have any questions, topics, anything that you would like us to cover, please drop us a comment down below, and we will see you in the next one.
Yes, appreciate you guys. See you in the next one.
Sweet.